All right. Hey, everybody, welcome back to CVN and the Exhaust Noise Podcast. And today is my absolute pleasure. My guest today competes in the progressive AFT American Flat Track Championship in the Mission Foods SuperTwins class. He's a two-time Grand National champion from 2019-2020 to add to his 2015 singles championship, and one of the most exciting SuperTwins flat track racers of the decade. He's a future Hall of Famer, I'm sure. Racing for the Rick Ware Racing Parts Plus Lattice Motors Harley Davidson team on the XG750R from Salinas, California. Please welcome the one and only Briar Bauman, everybody. All right. And the crowd goes wild, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, right. So 2020 was pretty special. That was the last championship that you won. Obviously, you've been so close since then, but 2020 was also special for a couple other reasons. Tell us why.
Yeah. I got married to my wife in 2020. Yeah, she feels like a decade ago, right? Which I guess we're not far away from that. But yeah, it feels like a long time ago, but just a good year. Obviously, not a good year with COVID and all this stuff. But yeah, the race season went really well. It was a time frame for me where it seemed like the sport, everything was kind of really thriving. My friends were doing well. My wife was doing well. And then also getting married, just, you know how it is when you're young, you're kind of just living, right? You're not really looking at the whole picture. You just kind of see what's in front of you. And it is naive as that is, it's a fun time as well. So it was a really good year for me back in 2020 for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You know, the fact that you married another flat track star, Shayna Texter, who, you know, is kind of flat track royalty herself, right?
Yeah.
With her father and her family history. How did you guys come to meet? I mean, obviously you're in the same place at the same time with all of this, but how did that come about?
Yeah, just racetrack, right? Like we started racing each other in 2011 when I went pro. My first race, we battled for the final position on the podium, and yeah, just started hitting off, right? Like kind of a normal deal. And yeah, before you know it, we started dating, and here we are, 14 years later. So
Yeah.
kind of funny, right? But yeah, just the flat track thing. We both live and breathe it. It's our whole life, and it's been our whole lives, our whole, since we were little. So yeah, kind of a fitting scenario for me and her, to be honest.
Yeah, so cool. And the fact that she can still sort of be around it now that
Oh,
she's a mom, right?
and she actually she manages the Rick Ware Racing flat track team for me. So she did that since we signed with Rick. When she raced in 23 and 24, she also team managed as well. And now that she's stepped away from racing, she's managing the race team as well for me and Rick. So yeah, still very involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there's always that stigma of being beat by a girl, right? You know, because we have it in road racing as well.
Yep.
You know, Kayla Yakov is just killing it on the road racing side of things. And Shayna wasn't the first woman flat tracker necessarily, but she was one of the first to really go to the front and stay up front and be competitive and beat boys on a regular basis. And, you know, obviously there's a million jokes that we could bring in about, you know, being beat by a girl or whatever, you know, or if you can't beat them, join them. Right. So if you can't beat her, let's marry her and you know, start a family and then that'll take her off the podium maybe. But yeah, how cool is it that both sides of the family can share that passion for flat track racing, not only now, but you can look back, right? I mean, you can look back on her history and her family history and go, yeah, like how cool was that moment?
Yeah, for sure. Like my parents and my family didn't have any ties to flat track racing or motorcycles in general. So didn't have that growing up. But now that we're in a position where her dad took her to the track and he raced for his whole career, his whole life, and his dad, so her grandfather, raced his whole life and his whole career, whatever. It's neat. Like it's cool to be able to tie everything together. I ride a Harley Davidson now. Her dad owned a Harley Davidson dealership until he passed away. They still own the building that the Harley shop is in. So a lot of ties that when we started dating and, you know, just kind of went through the motions, didn't really think about. But now it's like, okay, I'm getting older as well. Perspectives changing pretty much every day, it seems like. And yeah, so many cool pieces that I didn't really appreciate at the time. And now it's like, wow, this is super neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to celebrate the 2 championships in the twins class and of course the singles championship. Let's go back where a lot of this started, Briar. With AFT, it shows your first season being 2011 on the CRF 450.
Yep, yeah, 2011. I didn't turn 16 until halfway through the season. So I was only able to run half the races, right? So yeah, came into the scene like, I don't know, 10 races in or whatever the case may be. Ran the last 7 or 8, and yeah, ran it on the Honda 450.
And still finished 6th in the championship.
I did, yeah. We had a couple wins. I actually got disqualified from a race for running illegal fuel. We didn't know that it was illegal to be up front. Like, not, the pail said, it was the wrong pail of fuel. It was clear as day. But yeah, had a really good run and actually decided to go to the twins class the next season right away. Like, we just did races and went twins racing, which maybe wasn't the best idea, but it seemed like I had an opportunity to do it. And I'm like, why not? And yeah, I think I might have rushed things a bit, but hindsight, I think overall, the span of the whole career, I think it was really good for me. It taught me a lot about life and myself, and kind of put me in a bad position for a couple of years. It made me, I think, a little bit better now. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, we have a lot of people that watch that are not embedded in the motorcycle industry. Talk about a little bit the illegal fuel, because some people think, oh, fuel is fuel and there's race fuel and there's other fuel, but there's a lot of specifications within the fuels. Some series run a spec fuel that so it says, hey, you have to run this specific fuel, this specific type or whatever. But other series say, well, you can run whatever fuel you want, but they have to meet these specific certifications, right? And that might be density and everything else. Talk a little bit about that and what specifically got you disqualified from that.
Shoot, I mean, that was 14 years ago.
Or in general, what could get you disqualified if you had the wrong fuel?
We had a spec fuel. I think I'm just trying to think. Like, I think it was Sunoco 112 was our spec fuel back then, and I mean, it was clear as day. So what we had done is, I'm from California. We came back to the Midwest, and we had hot fuel, right? Like, we had oxygenated fuel for the non-national events that we would do, basically not spec for AFT. And my dad accidentally grabbed the wrong pail of fuel on race day, and we filled it up, and pretty naive. It was like our 5th race on this, ever professionally, and filled it up. And yeah, for the main event, got popped. Like, we went to post-race tech, they tested it, they said, go get the pail. My dad picks the pail up, but it wasn't like we were hiding it. It said clear as day on the side. It wasn't MR12. I don't remember what it was, but it was not legal for sure.
And you used a couple of terms there that are important: hot fuel and oxygenated. So for those that don't know, fuel with more oxygen in it burns hotter, faster, it ignites faster, and so it provides a bigger bang inside the engine, therefore more horsepower, which is why we would run that.
Exactly. Yeah. So the fuel that we run is not oxygenated. So it doesn't, to be honest, our fuel is extremely safe, meaning that you have a lot less detonation. And yeah, so we put that in, and again, it was running really good. And yeah, I had issues throughout the day. I fast qualified, had issues in my heat race. So then I had to go to an LCQ, and I went to the third row and won the race from the third row. And it was like a super cool story. Everything was cool. And then, yeah, post-race tech happened, and it wasn't so cool anymore. So, yeah, just a interesting time in my life, right?
Yeah. Do you watch the Supercross series currently?
Of course, yeah. I tune into almost. I mean, honestly, the only racing series I don't really get super into is F1, but anything motorsport, be locked in on.
So a couple bikes in Supercross already this year have been disqualified for noise, for the sound ordinance. They were too loud post race.
Yep, I've seen that. Yeah, they've been on it this year in Supercross. I've noticed. I read everything, right? And do
you guys have that as well? Do you guys have a sound ordinance?
We did for a long time. It actually, last season was the first season they've actually pulled the restrictions on the sound ordinance. We did have it. I believe it was 112 or 110 decibels at a certain RPM. Like, so how much throttle you give it. So we did have that for a long time, and they actually pulled it this last season. So
yeah, which is still really, really loud.
it's loud. Yeah. And what's crazy to me about the Supercross is I feel like the bikes are getting quieter and quieter. And they still are having issues. Not still, I understand why the manufacturers and the exhaust companies are having issues because it's so quiet now. Like you can barely hear the bike sometimes on the track, which is crazy, but they're very quiet.
Yeah. And the Supercross bikes, we see a lot of those same bikes in the AFT series, right? You know, going back a little ways, the singles program that was launched by Formula USA and later adopted by AFT really focuses on those single cylinder dirt bikes that are built by almost 10 or 12 different manufacturers globally. You've got the Japanese manufacturers, KTM, which you've ridden in the past, Husqvarna. You know, Ducati now has a 450 Supercross bike. You know, talk a little bit about the manufacturer participation in AFT in general, and then now that you're you've been a Twins rider now for quite a while, we don't see the same singles in there, but we see some very specific Twins bikes there. Talk a little bit about the bikes that run with AFT and their origin and how do they relate to the retail market?
Yeah, so the singles is an interesting, you know, like you mentioned, there's a lot of manufacturers that participate. Basically, I think the only one that's not there at this point is Ducati, which it's so new that there's not a lot of people that have dove into that, you know, that market yet. But on the single side, yeah, you see every brand every weekend. My wife, like you mentioned, Husqvarna, KTM, she rode for both factories in her career. Red Bull, KTM for a long time. Honda has had a team in flat track for a long time. Yamaha with Essence and Racing. The Twins is a bit different because it's twin cylinders. There's not a lot of manufacturers that necessarily build an engine or a platform directly related to flat track. So what a lot of us will do, whether it's a Kawasaki, so you'll see the three main ones will be Kawasaki, Yamaha, and Harley Davidson. So what they've done is they've taken a production engine out of essentially a street bike. So like just one you'll go to the dealership and buy, and you'll take the motor out, and then you build the chassis and the frame and everything around it. So it's a bit more in depth. And with that comes, I guess people get a little bit nervous about building new platforms. There's going to be an Aprilia this year, which is interesting. So there's a team that just built an Aprilia. I think it's a 660 RS 660. I think is the motor package. You see that, but when I say people get nervous, when you have the Kawasaki and the Yamaha and now KTM and Harley, the parts are essentially already established, which is big because the power delivery in flat track is super, super different than supercross or motocross or anything that you normally see. You want something that's really smooth and linear, and the throttle wants to be really mellow. And a lot of that's developed through camshafts and, you know, piston combinations and stuff like that. So
yeah, momentum.
Yeah. Exactly. Your momentum, crankshaft size, a lot of stuff. So people get a little bit nervous about maybe adventuring down new paths, just because honestly, the R&D is so expensive to establish or, you know, develop a camshaft that works better for flat track or whatever the case may be. But you are seeing there was a Suzuki. I don't know the motor in the Suzuki, but honestly, the new rules in American flat track, when I say new rules, they went from essentially an open platform, so you could run a purpose-built engine for flat track, meaning the motor was built directly, specifically for flat track. They've eliminated that, and now it's production engine only, which I was just talking about, how it comes out of a street bike and the engine you could go buy at a dealership. So with that, it seems like there's been a lot more brand variety. You've seen KTM, you've seen Suzuki, Yamaha, kind of all of them in the mix, Harley Davidson. It's Honda. Honda won a race this year for the first time since Ricky Graham, or I don't know who the last Honda was to win, to be honest, but it's been
a while,
30 years, I think. So it was really good for the sport to see so many different brands in the mix, and it wasn't like people were building them and it was an R&D like season. It was like it caught me off guard to see some of the people that we were racing with and the brands that were in the mix. So it was cool on both singles and twins, like we were talking about.
Yeah, and the challenge for you guys as flat track racers specifically is, you know, you talk about the engineering a little bit. You know, the motorcycles and the crankshafts and the way that the cranks and the pistons and the engines and everything spin, especially in the twins, is designed to go in a straight line on a street and then be able to turn. And then when they try to engineer it for road racing, it still wants to turn left, right,
Yep.
and keep the wheels in line. Whereas you guys are trying to get it set up so that you're sliding sideways at an angle, most of the race. Is there a special challenge in getting a bike that's designed to do something completely different to make it work the way you need it to work?
Oh yeah. Yeah, massive challenge. Yeah, huge. So shoot, you could dive into that one really deep, but yeah, very short.
Which we don't have to, but obviously they like, what are some of the key changes that you have to look for to set that up differently when it's designed to do something completely different?
So the biggest thing is just power delivery.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the bread and butter in flat track is power delivery. A lot of times when you get a street bike or one of these engines that are developed for the road and to do all the things you just spoke about, they also are developed with, I don't want to call it unlimited grip, but a lot more grip than you have in flat track. Because on the dirt, it's hard pack. Normally, it's hard pack. It's usually really slippery. So meaning the dirt is, you slide a lot, even though it's unintentional. You get on the gas and the rear wheel spins rather than forward. So
and every track is different.
All of them are different. It's not like you go somewhere and you get a good base for that spot, you're going to be good the rest of the year. It's like, no, you're probably going to go next week and be just as lost as you were when you started that day. So the first thing in everything is power delivery. Like, hey, we got to find something that's going to, usually if you can find a good, whether it's through crankshaft or camshaft or piston, whatever the case is, if you can get something that's pretty mellow, when I say mellow, the power's not super abrupt, like it comes, the factory.
You want it to come in smooth and be controlled, and
you have a lot of feel. It's such a touchy feely sport. If you can get something that's pretty good across the board, you can take if you get something you're comfortable with, you can take it across the board, I should say, and go to basically any type of track. Even though there are tracks where that aggressive throttle or power delivery can be beneficial. I still think that 9 times out of 10 or throughout a season, you're going to want something more consistent. So, but yeah, back to answer your question, the biggest thing when you get these brands off the showroom is how do we get the power to fit our sport, because it is super unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things, so in the 90s, I was announcing at Daytona and we went over to the old municipal stadium.
Yeah.
And I had a camera crew following me, and we were doing interviews with, Chris Carr and Scotty Parker and Springsteen and all those guys, more Hall of Fame legends. Yeah. And, everybody had 2 motorcycles set up completely different, right? One had inverted, big inverted front forks. The other had standard forks, and maybe the chassis is a little bit different. The tank might be the same. And are you guys still running 2 separate bikes? So when you get to a track, you try one and you try another and figure out which is best, or are you guys limited to, frames and motors to keep it, to kind of keep some of the parity?
I think a lot of us have kind of gotten to the point where we keep the parity. There are guys who still show up with 2 different setups on motorcycles, and we've done it, but I kind of like what I got back to the question or the answer to your last question. I think when you find something, it's hard for us to get too far away from it because we have so limited track time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you show up with something like that, is your home and your base, meaning like exactly what you got for forks, suspension, wheels, and the feeling whether the track is different than the last track or not. And you can, at least in my opinion, how I've done it in my career, I'll show up maybe with something a touch different, not way, way, way out there where it's like, hey, you got 2 completely different motorcycles. Yeah. Just because it's like the track's ever changing, right? You're always kind of chasing it, and it'll change throughout a session, let alone the day. Yeah. I've kind of taken the approach that like, let's go with maybe some different exhaust packages to help, adjust power delivery or, some minor tweaks, but let's not flip this thing upside down and have 2. Cause sometimes in person, I'll be open. Like I get a little bit spun out sometimes on race day, just like, okay, what did I feel? What's going on? So I know there are guys who will show up with what you described right there and have 2 totally different motorcycles. But for me, and I think, to be honest, the majority of the paddock, it's more like, hey, we kind of show up with 2 bikes pretty dang close, and work through the little, nuances and things we have problems with throughout the day.
So you guys are really making adjustments based on power delivery. So maybe electronics, how the electronics deliver, maybe changing where the expansion chamber is and the exhaust, changing the exhaust flow, those types of things. You're not changing front forks and swing arms and pivot angles and all that kind of stuff necessarily.
There are teams doing that. And I will say I do make quite a few adjustments to, like, I'm not swapping actual forks and shocks, but we are making minor adjustments to the suspension and the chassis throughout the day, maybe wheelbase, maybe wheel width. But it's funny because, like, a lot of changes for us that, we do just, in the blink of an eye are major changes in other series, right? Like even when like Rick Ware came to our first race, right? He was watching us change wheel widths and wheel base and suspension, not actual shocks, but just adjustments, clickers, sags, so forth. It spun him out a little bit. He couldn't believe that we were making those types of changes like in a race day. It was like wholesale changes, right? But for us, it's like we know our motorcycle so well at this point. We know usually what the response is going to be based off the changes we're making, that it's almost second nature. Like that's minor for us. So I am still making, making changes to, front end offset with our clamps and stuff like that. But like I said, ideally for me, I kind of get through testing at the beginning of the year. Our test days come up with a base setup, and we don't get too far away from that. And when we do, it usually means the day's not going super well, and we're chasing it heavy. But even if we do chase it and we get there, we go back to home by the next race. So.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, when we talk about making wholesale changes and changing all these different things, it's to some people, they think, oh, we're going to change this an inch or this an inch. No, we're talking millimeters. We're like, we might change something 1 mil, 2 mil, very, very small changes, but they make such a massive difference. I was working on a team at Daytona one year, and Randy Renfro wanted me to change his rear shock by 0.5 millimeter. And I wasn't even sure how I was going to measure that. I mean, that could be the slack in the bolt. You take the bolt out and you put the bolt right back in, that might be 0.5 millimeter. So, but we slap the shock back in it and off he goes, and he comes back and he goes, yep, it's perfect. I was like,
yep, exactly.
Great.
Sometimes I think it might even be more mental for myself and other people than it is the actual self. Like I think I'll spin my mechanics out and they'll think it's the wrong direction, but they're cool. They go, hey, like we'll talk about it, but if it's what you want, let's do it. I'll go out and I might go the exact same speed, probably not faster. And I say, dude, this is exactly what I needed. And we're the same speed. Maybe we're still up in the mix. And they say, cool, if you're comfortable, let's just run with it. So
because a lot of times it is comfort, right? A lot of times it's comfort. It's physically okay. That feels better. It might not be faster, but it feels better. And if it feels better, maybe I can take more risk and do more with it. Right.
Well, and my big thing is, and we do it often, like, hey, this setup here, you can maybe go a 10th quicker, but how many laps in a row can you do that? So at what point is it worth, keeping a setup that you can do the same lap time and lay it over? Because for me, I always set my bike up for the main event and what's going to get us, through the entire main at the same speed, not lose any. Because that's what always happens. Our track wears out. You lose speed, meaning like the lap times get slower just because of the track wearing down and getting slick and all this stuff. It's cool and qualifying to have something that's really aggressive and has a grip, but it's twitchy and whatever it may be. But how consistent can you be with that lap time? So it's the comfort thing is very big for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So let's talk about career a little bit. So you got going 2010, 2011. It didn't take very long. 2015, you won your first GNC singles championship on a Honda. You also got to participate in that Super Prestigio. Talk about that a little bit.
The Super Prestigio was sweet. Yeah, that was a cool experience to get to do. I can't remember. Actually, I started with the Super Prestigio of the Americas. So we did that in 2015, which was really cool. Enjoyed that a lot. But then when I got to go over to Spain, Barcelona, and ride with Marc Marquez and Tony Elias, and then JD Beach, who's a fellow American, went over with me, and we were, we represented America, and just a cool experience, like to kind of get to go and travel a little bit. And, I've done the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and it all kind of comes together in the fact that, like, you forget, maybe I do, I don't know about others, but I take for granted the opportunity that racing has given me. Like, we got to go, and my wife was able to go with me to Spain to do the whole race. She had done it in 2014, I think the year was. I don't really remember. But yeah, just incredible experiences to travel, see the world, see the, new countries, different cultures and stuff like that. So very, very fortunate for sure.
Yeah, that's what a blast. And then you got to participate in the X Games in 2016.
Another one that was awesome.
A little bit different, right? Kind of getting motorcycles on a larger stage, especially flat track racing. So many people know about motocross and supercross, and it seems like road racing and flat track kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there might be more money in flat track racing than there is in road racing, nowadays. So it's just crazy that it gets shuffled. But it's been this, flat track's been kind of, not that it's been the same, but it's been this similar concept forever. It hasn't really changed a ton, with the exception of the technology and the motorcycles. Like you mentioned, Harley Davidson clearly has been in the forefront of that for a long, long time. Indian, who you got to ride, for the factory Indian for a few years as well, they made a big return to flat track racing, which was historic, and that's cool. Nowadays, Yamaha has that MT-07 motor. Suzuki has the 800cc motor. It has evolved in some ways, but in a lot of ways, it's still, it's just wide open going around flat track, going around dirt track.
It's so funny, like how I'm really involved in like the supercross side and the road race side, just through connections and stuff like that, and the way I see things change and all this stuff. But for flat track, man, it's so grassroots. Like, as simple as having a tire that's worn out a little bit more than the next tire, you're like, well, I'm going to take that one. And to explain that to like the people outside of the circle, right? Like, they would never in a million, you always put a new tire on. Well, no, that's you don't do that in flat track a lot of times for a clay track or whatever. So it's interesting because I think as much as we try and reinvent the wheel, we come back to the home, the same numbers, the same pieces, and hey, this is what seems to work, and we can try it this other way, but at the end of the day, you always come back to what home is, no matter the brand, no matter the motor package, no matter the whatever. Like, there's this window where it works for flat track, and that's kind of where it is. And it's so interesting because I don't know anyone that's really made it work outside that window. So very funny.
Yeah. And you've ridden a pretty wide variety. We talked about you riding the Honda. You rode the Kawasaki Ninja 650. You rode a KTM 790 Duke.
Yeah.
The Indian FTR 750, and now you're back on a Harley Davidson.
Yeah. I've been on a lot. I rode a Suzuki TL 1000.
I remember that. Yep.
I rode that in 2013 or 14. I've ridden everything. I think, like I talked about when I went from the singles to the twins class, kind of got lost a little bit in my career, right? And kind of you get to a point where you're just looking for a ride every weekend. It's not like you have something for the season. It's just, how do I keep racing? So you even though maybe it's not your best option, you just take what you can get and you just go and race your motorcycle and stay. So, but that taught me a lot, because all of those bikes had so many different characteristics and different things that made them unique, and taught me how to ride in a different way. So, so many different brands, but a lot of fun just going through all the processes.
Yeah. So what was it like when Indian got involved and you had an opportunity to ride an Indian?
Yep.
Which is iconic motorcycle brand. The history is there. You're riding for the factory and developing a factory machine that's going to be used across the platform by not only the pro riders at your level, but maybe across the board at amateur flat tracks, around the world, around the country. What was that like, riding for the factory Indian team? And then I have to imagine it's very similar now, where you're riding for the factory Harley Davidson team.
So just like real quick, I'm not on the factory Harley team now. So
sorry,
it's all good. Yeah, it's fine. But it was funny at the Indian deal. It was almost like when I got to go to the factory for on the Indian team, all of those other motorcycles that I rode and all the stuff I went through and the brands that I learned from, it seemed like everything came to the forefront. And that's when I kind of like, I took a really big step in 2018 to 2019 when I went from, you know, I was riding a Kawasaki for the first 3/4 of the season. And then, like you mentioned, we were able to purchase the Indian, the FTR 750. And we did that, or we didn't purchase it. Jerry Stinchfield Roof Systems of Dallas, Texas gave me one to ride. And it was like the step was so massive, even in the middle of the year when I got on the bike. It was almost like all of the good stuff that I had learned throughout my career kind of came to the forefront. It was like, wow, here we are. We've kind of arrived, right? And then I went on 4 years with Factory Indian Motorcycle. And, you know, I wish there was a way to know you were in the good old days when you're in the good old days. And it was just like things were clicking. And like 19 and 20, we had phenomenal years. 21 and 22 were great as well. It just obviously came up a touch short on championships, but nonetheless had some really good years in my career right there for that 4-year span with the factory. And it was kind of everything that you dream of, right? Like for flat track, at least, you know, it was a semi roll into the track, and you know, you roll in and the pit setup's already set up, where we were used to changing our own tires and setting the pit up and help drive the truck. So I went from kind of
a little van with a 10-foot pop up out back, right?
And people in the van to get there. So went from the grassroots side to the full factory side, and probably got a little bit big headed because of it. But it was everything that you would dream of for our sake on the flat track side, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you clearly had some success there, right? You know, because before that, it looked like you were struggling on some of the other models and struggling to get the finishes you wanted, struggling to get to the front of the championship. But 2019, 2020, you were able to wrap up the championships on the Indian. And then 21, 22, like you said, second in the championship. Talk a little bit about that transition. You're used to being on, you know, winning all those races and collecting all the points and kind of running the championship, being the guy. And now you've got a couple other riders kind of working their way in there. And talk a little bit about that, and where's that competition now? How did it feel to kind of be knocked off the podium a little bit? Because we do struggle, like you said, you know, maybe we do struggle a little bit with ego when we get to a certain part of the sport. We're like, I'm the man, and you kind of have to have that attitude going in. I'm the guy to beat. You know, if you're gonna take the win, take the championship, you're coming through me, brother. You know,
Yeah.
and then you know what? Talk a little bit about about that, and then to finish at the end of the year and you go, yep, points. Like I'm not going to be the champ this year. How does that feel? How do you personally work through that?
Yeah, so it was different for me because when I signed my Indian contract in 2018 going into 19, it was almost like my boss Gary Gray said, "Hey, you're probably not going to win the championship next year. Jared Mees is going to win. You know, he's probably the next 4 or 5." And all the credit to him. He just won the last 2, like 5 races early, won 10 races each year. There was no reason he shouldn't have. So it was a little bit different mentally just because I went in and I don't think anyone was like, hey, he's going to win the championship at 19. I was the guy kind of knocking Jared off, right? And then 2020, it was like, oh, Jared's, you know, he's kind of pissed off. He's going to win for sure. So then I backed it up. Okay, now he's got something going for, you know, for sure. But when I lost to him in 21, he's the one who came back. And at that point, he already had 5 or 6 or 7 championships. So it was almost like, okay, you're back and I see it. And I didn't win nearly the races I did in 21. And our team structure changed a lot from 20 to 21. And that threw some weird scenarios at us. And it was all good. We were 5 minutes away from winning the championship again. I crashed at the last round while leading the points and knocked myself out, and yeah, it was game over. So it was kind of like, okay, but 22 is really hard on us. It seemed like the whole team took a really tough dive. Just there were some restrictions put on the Indian motorcycle, and it almost just spun everything out mentally for me. Not even so much on the championship side, just like career. Like, okay, what's going on here? What's the direction of the sport? What's going on with the motorcycle? Yeah. What's my next move? Is this what I want to ride next season in 2023? And that's, I was almost thinking future, even mid-season, because things were going, really poorly, to be honest. And yeah, we ended up, I think we still got second in the championship that year, but it was just like, and we even took it to the last round. It wasn't like we were way out of it. We still were fighting for it, but it was like just
that's always the best.
And we were fighting for it, but it was a weird scenario for me. It wasn't like the nitty gritty 2021 and 19 and 20. It was just like, we're here, but we're not really here. So that was a weird, like you mentioned, me explaining it a little bit mentally. 22 is the, toughest mentally, just because it was like, we're in it, but mentally we're not there. So
Yeah.
that was interesting. And then, big change for 22. The factory team stepped away for 2023, and I kind of had to decide what I was going to do. And I decided to ride a KTM. So from there, all of my racing, my career, everything kind of just twisted up and got with Rick Ware Racing, and everything looked a lot different in a matter of a few months. So
yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, for quite a while there, yourself and me's were really the benchmark, right? And then
Yep.
you get this young kid from the Midwest on a Yamaha who comes in, Dallas Daniels. He's been a disruptor last few years.
Yeah, for sure. It was tough for me because like I decided to go to the KTM, which was completely undeveloped. Like there was maybe 2 races on it,
Yeah.
and it was a weird scenario. And I told my wife Shayna, because obviously we spoke about like we raced together and whatnot. But like to go from being in it to like way like outside the window, like just outside looking in. I'm not here for the championship anymore, and that was so tough. I'm like, and Dallas and Mees went to blows. They had some great races, and went all year long at the championship, and that was a tough one where it's like, whoa, I'm not even a part of this thing. Like I'm not even relevant. And I was relevant. I was winning and getting podiums.
Yeah.
Wasn't enough consistently to championship. So that was the thing that was tough with that. And all the credit to Dallas for getting in there and mixing up with Mees, because if not, it would have been he would have blown it away, which I think he ended up winning pretty early.
Confidence is so important. And talk a little bit about how you balance confidence and humility, because and it sounds like that's kind of what hit, right? You had so much, you have so much confidence in your own personal ability and what you're able to do with a motorcycle, right? I mean, you're in rare air, right?
Yep.
You and like less than 10, 12 other guys in the history of flat track have dominated flat track, and and will be, Hall of Famers for sure. But then all of a sudden you're not that guy anymore, and you're having to go, okay, like I know who I am, and I know what I can do, but I just don't have the package. And how do you process that, and how do you come away not just being upset or angry or whatever, and just have confidence and optimism that we're just going to keep pushing and we're going to eventually get there and we're okay?
Yeah, it's not easy. Like it's really not easy because, like I said, I kind of lived in a fantasy land from 2019 to 22. I'll say 21, and then all of a sudden I made the decision, to go to the KTM, and that was like, man, it was cool because I podiumed the first race, right? Like, which probably should have not happened because we didn't get to test the bike, nothing. It was very green. But then we went through all of the struggles, and it's like, okay, you asked for this, it's what you signed up for, and you got to deal with it, and you got, you made your bed, you got to, sleep in it. So, but at the end of the day, you get to the end of the season when things start to get to the nitty gritty on the championship side. I'm just I was mad that I wasn't losing sleep at night, because that's what it's like going for a championship. You lose sleep at night over it because you're just thinking about it 24/7. I'm like, I'm sleeping fine in October. That means that I'm not very relevant right now. So, trying to figure that out was weird, and I think it was more just me and Shay kept talking like, we're gonna get back, like this isn't gonna be like this forever. We made some interesting decisions as a family and as a team and as a crew, and we did more than I think anyone would have anticipated in the championship on the KTM, especially considering it was literally a stock engine. Like that power delivery thing you and I talked about. The KTM's really tough for flat track, and we just left it as it was just because of parts availability. So did a lot with it, and I think that's what kind of kept me going. And I think that's why when I got back on a motorcycle that was really, solid with the XG 750, 2 years on a bike that I really had to fight for it, and had some good results, won, quite a few races and a lot of podiums, got on the XG, and it was like, oh man, we're back. So that's where we kind of re-sparked the championship, the championship feeling and vibe.
And what was that? Did it feel more like the Indian that you had, just in weight and power and everything else, because the motors were somewhat similar?
Yeah, just the throttle response, like, it was
Yeah.
so mellow, and so I could do what I needed to do and not have to worry so much about, like, busting the tire loose, meaning spinning the tire, and,
Yeah.
I could ride it and do things again that I hadn't been able to do in a few years. So exactly what you're saying, just the feeling was similar to the Indian, so that was great.
Yeah. A little more control, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So change gears a little bit. Who were some of your influences growing up?
Um, I would say Doug Chandler was probably one of the biggest ones. Salinas
Okay.
California. Obviously he was
Yeah.
a road for the end of his career, but he was flat track through and through, and yeah, we were able to ride a lot together, trail ride, do all this stuff. I rode mountain bikes with him almost every week, and yeah,
Wow.
I would say Doug Chandler was probably my biggest influence, even though it
That's
wasn't like,
fantastic.
yeah, not directly. I don't want to say directly racing related. He was just such a good dude. Like, he was a really good guy to me
Hmm.
as a young kid, and
And
didn't.
and and in your area growing up, you got the Bostroms
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
close too, right? So
yeah,
Eric and Ben Bostrom,
yep,
the Waits, right? Matt and Gator
yeah,
Wait, we're all from that area. So there's some DNA there that
a lot.
has not only flat track but road racing roots.
Yeah, no, a lot for sure across the board. Like, anywhere you looked in California, at least within a 2 to 3 hour window for me, like a lot of really good dudes. Go down to Paso Robles. I'm trying to think who else we had down there. Johnny Murphy. Like, there's just some really good guys. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I was lucky that Doug was really, on the straight and narrow and had a good idea of what it took to be good at what you're doing. And I kind of saw his mentality, and obviously he was retired and stuff like that, but just
yeah,
kind of was able to look at his career as a whole and what he did with, his wife, and got married young, and, went, to Europe for a little while and all this stuff, and kept his head on straight, because it's super easy to kind of get lost on your path, right? Especially as a young kid. And yeah, so yeah, I had some really good people around
yeah.
me, and he was one of them.
There was obviously a handful of flat trackers that went from flat track to road race, and you still come across them, and obviously you follow road racing. Have you? I don't remember you being on a road race bike at all.
Yeah,
Have you at least
Doug.
on the at least on a national circuit?
No, no, Doug and I did it. I mean, shoot, a handful of track days together, and I really enjoyed it. I really did. But when I started, I started on a 600 at Buttonwell. I did 4 or 5 track days, right? And I, like I said, like, enjoyed it a lot. Thought I was actually pretty solid. But when I did that it was really in the time frame where it seemed like American road racing was struggling bad, right? Like, all the
Sure. Yeah.
factories on, shoot, nobody was making any money, and
Yeah.
had a really good thing going with the flat track. And as much as I enjoyed the road racing, me and Doug even talked about, like I said, the influence. Like, it was like, man, it just, why would you rock the boat, with what you got right now? You have a good
Yep.
ride for track. And I wasn't pro yet. I was still amateur. I was getting ready to go pro. But the costs and just everything that it took to go race, it was like, man, I don't have the funding to do both. Like, I'm able to go race flat track with some, good sponsors and people, and I can't take that money and put it to over here, especially when it probably wouldn't be enough, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
well, I would have loved to, and I even joke with, like, James Rispoli and Bradley Smith. I was with them yesterday, but, like, I still would like to do a hooligan race or do something, just go have fun and just, like, bucket list thing. But it would be
Especially at Daytona, since we're all there anyway, right?
exactly just knock them all out in the week, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Come down in the fall for the race of champions down there, and everything else is wrapped up by then. So
that you're done for sure. So
yeah,
yeah, something like that. But yeah, no,
I'm,
never did
I'm
anything on
sure
this.
James come up with a bike for you. Rispoli come up with a
We're
bike for
working on
you.
it. We're talking about it for sure. He's connections between them guys is unlimited almost.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody down there to loan you a bike for a weekend. Speaking of that, what was your first bike? What was the first bike that you rode that got you interested in motorcycling, and what attracted you to the sport in general?
Yeah, a Honda CRF 70 was my first bike, and we had the Ricky Graham Memorial race in California in King City, and yeah, one of my neighbors rode, and they were gonna go do it. And kind of the same thing. Like, me and my brother saw that they were gonna go, and we said, "Dad, Mom, let's go do it." And my dad didn't actually want to. My mom did, and so yeah, we just went, and it was almost like it was
Love
just
it.
gonna be a fun thing, because I was a baseball player. I was young. I was only 8 years old or whatever. But at that point, I'd played baseball my whole life, and yeah, I loaded up, and we went to that, and it was like shoot, I want to say the next weekend we were in Lodi, California, racing again. My dad was mounting new tires for that because it took a different type of tire. And yeah, from there, it was just game over. Like we were hooked, and that's all we did from there on out.
And at what point did you decide that's what you wanted to do for a career? Like, screw baseball, I'm racing motorcycles.
Well, I bailed on baseball early because I remember our team made it to the playoffs, and we had a race in Lodi on Saturday. And my dad had to drive through the night to get us home on Sunday to play a game, and we bailed out on that like really early. But as far as the career goes, I don't know if like it. I was pretty naive, right? Like I knew I had a goal and I just wanted to win everything I could, but it was never like, hey, I'm going to do this professionally. I'm going to make a living at it and be 30 years old like I am now and have made an actual career at it. There was never like that mentality, even though it's funny. I was like going to the gym when I was really young. Like I'm talking like 8th, 7th grade with my dad at like 4 a.m. just to work out and not knowing what I'm doing in the gym whatsoever. I'm just there, right? Just pushing some weight around, just thinking it's what's right for racing and not a clue, but just that was always the thing. Like, what do I need to do right now to be better on Saturday? And never was, hey, this is going to be my life and whatever. But I wanted to make sure I did everything I could to win on Saturday. And it's kind of just snowballed my whole life, right? So, yeah.
So you grew up in the Salinas area, started racing up there. Where do you live and train now? I mean, you're in Florida now. Is that just getting ready for Daytona, just kind of getting everything, doing everything at sea level, or do you kind of have a couple different places that you stay?
Yeah, my wife was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and I moved in with her in 2013 or 14, I think it was, and been there essentially ever since. My parents, being from California, eventually moved to the Midwest in Illinois just because it's more centrally located for the racing. And now, we started coming to Florida through the winter. I think in 2018 was my first year. And then I've come down ever since. Just it gets so cold in Pennsylvania with the snow and all the winter stuff that you can't ride. The training's all indoors. So we come down to Florida. We're able to ride 3 days a week and do all our cycling, our running, our training outside for the most part. And just kind of get a true like boot camp before the season starts. And we were fortunate enough to purchase a home down here at the end of 2022. And we were just staying in a camper for, 4 months at a time before that, just getting ready for the year. So now we have our home here that we come back down to probably October timeframe and spend about 2 months and then go back up north for the holiday stuff like that. But
I mean, as racers, we're whether it's racing or your media or whatever, we're kind of nomads, moving around. And so people think, oh man, you lived in a trailer for 4 months. Like, hey, it's better than living in a van. So, and there's people that do that too. Right. So it's like, well,
I mean, it's a whatever it takes mentality. I mean, we got to the point where we bought our first camper in 2020 during COVID when I won that championship, and going to the camper was like, this is the Taj Mahal compared to my van. We've been sleeping in the van for the last 6 months or 6 years or whatever. So it's all about perspective, but at the end of the day, it's whatever it takes. And we knew that for the two of us, me and Shannon, we needed to be in Florida during the winter, like from January till the season opener, and just training. So we did what we had to do, washing bikes and having to load them in and out of the van every day when we'd ride rather than having a garage to roll them into. And you start to appreciate things differently as you get older. And I mean, now that I have a home here, I don't know if I'd be able to do the camper thing again, but it's we went through it, we paid our dues, and it's just how it goes.
Yeah. And talking about that, everybody always wants to know the why. So, so two why questions for you. Why do you love the sport so much? What is it that just is part of your DNA? And when people ask you, why flat track? Why do you race motorcycles? And then why do you put continue to put your body through, it's a brutal training schedule, and then to ride all day, and sometimes like at Daytona where you're 2 nights in a row, it's a lot on the body. Why do you continue putting yourself through it? Why do you love it so much?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily just flat track. I love motorcycles. Like we talked about, I road raced for, a couple track days and love that. I love motocross. I grew up riding off-road a little bit while racing flat track. I think it's just the freedom of being on a bike, being able to kind of express yourself through a motorcycle is kind of why I do it. And I
Mm.
also, I'm not as serious as a lot of the other guys, but at the end of the day, I love to compete. Like I love lining up main event time. You got 10 minutes on certain tracks or 12 minutes, whatever it may be. And just seeing who's ready, who's going to be the guy at the end of all of it. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, like we were speaking about the track changes and, you have to find a different line. You don't get to just lock in on one spot like you
Yeah.
would on a road race bike normally, right? Like inside, apex, whole thing. Us, sometimes the inside gets really slick and it's way faster to go up by the hay bales, like way faster. So I like being able to go out and be the guy that finds those new lines and everyone goes, well, he found that line, that's why I won. Well, yeah, it's why different lines. So I enjoy that side of things. I enjoy being able to, it's a way for
Yeah.
me to express myself on a motorcycle rather
Challenge.
than the paddock. So I just love
Yeah.
competing.
Yeah. And we talked, obviously you talked a lot about training. How do you train? What are the things that you do for training? How do you stay in shape and stay 100% locked in?
Yeah, so right now it's a lot of motocross, a lot of motocross, but just being on a motorcycle. So right now we're trying to ride 3 days a week, and then in between that we're cycling or running or rowing or skiing. It's So for our sport, it's a lot of heart rate training, just getting your heart rate ready to go for whatever the day may be. You're probably going to spend a majority of Saturday or Sunday, whatever the race days are. This Daytona is Thursday, Friday, but you have to assume that you're going to be above 100 beats per minute for a majority of the day, even when you're sitting in the pit after qualifying. So a lot of heart rate training throughout the day, or throughout the off season. A little bit of weight training. I don't do a lot of like gyms. I do a lot of gym stuff, but not a lot of weight stuff because I'm such a taller guy, heavier guy. I need to stay pretty lean. Where like JD Beach or Jared Mees or those guys that are a bit shorter, and the twins also heavy, need some strength to push it around. Where I have some leverage to use it.
Yeah, I was going
The
to
way
ask if that was an advantage or not, just the
it
longer arms and legs and leverage.
It is on certain racetracks like
Mm.
Daytona short track. It's huge, but I go to Springfield Mile where you're doing 130. I weigh at my leanest 160 pounds, where Jared Mee shows up at 140. They say every 8 horsepower or 8 pounds is a horsepower. I think
Yeah.
Jared's 30. Like, I'm down 7 horsepower before we even start the race. So,
Yeah. And JD's a feather.
exactly. Both them guys are really small. The schedule this year and the schedule it's been the last couple of years, I think it fits the taller guys a bit more because there's not a lot of miles, but
Mm.
it's tough on the miles when you go up against the smaller guys for sure. So it just has its give and takes. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're basically 6 days a week right now training, and Sundays are off, and
Yeah.
yeah, have a routine regimen and stay on it.
So on the flip side, how do you relax?
It just depends where I'm at, really. If I'm down here in Florida, we go to the beach a bit and hang out with our, Shayna's brother Corey, my brother-in-law, has a home down here, so they come down as well, and he's a big part of the American Flat Track Series now too. And go to the beach and just I golf a little bit, not a lot right now, but it's hard to relax here in Florida just because it's such a grind and so wide open. To be honest, like whenever you're not doing the things that are required for the racing, you're doing the things around the house and stuff to catch up because you're probably behind. But in Pennsylvania, I'm a big deer hunter, so I shoot my bow a lot, and it's not quite as serious when we get up there because you get through your boot camp and you have days off and you don't ride as much and wash and the whole thing. So yeah, I have a few things I do. I play a bit of video games with my buddies and stuff like that. So yeah, just kind of hang out with people that I enjoy being around.
Yeah. And obviously, Shayna and the kids and family influence your program quite a bit. How do you balance all of that?
Yeah, that's new for me. Having a son is brand new, and I thought it was. I mean, it's been tough, right? But we're fortunate. He's a pretty good kid, right? Their son, he's 4 months now, 4.5 months, but um, it's new. Trying to we didn't maybe anticipate how much it was going to take throughout the day to. Both of us are super involved in our racing, and we're fortunate because we get to stay home, right? But with that, when it comes time to make team calls or send emails and stuff like that, we kind of juggle things a little bit. But at the end of the day, I love it, and we get to work from home essentially and do exactly what we want to do and be involved in a sport that we love. So
Yeah, I
the
love that.
and the timing and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a little bit different and difficult, but I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm sitting at home right now. I'm technically on the clock. She's on the clock, probably doing stuff right now for emails and so on. And that's the mad dash for Daytona. Like everyone goes through, we're just hoping everything shows up in time, canopy, so on.
Yeah.
But we're very fortunate. So I don't, discredit that, or not discredit, but I don't take that for granted by any means.
Yeah. And I mean, the tracks are so different. And for those that haven't been to a flat track, Daytona short track, there's several short tracks that you guys will run, and you've always been amazing on the short tracks. Daytona is 2 nights in a row on a short track, and then you've got the massive miles. Do you have a favorite format? Do you have a favorite track across the country that you like for one reason or another? Not that you've done well there, but is there just a track you're like, oh, like we're going to Del Mar? I love Del Mar.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'll be up front. I enjoy, just like I said, I enjoy racing and competing. I like when the track is prepped well, if that makes sense. Like we go to sometimes where passing is really difficult. You kind of get stuck on a one line and you can't do much. I don't enjoy that, but essentially as long as the track is pretty racy, meaning you can move around and you can find new lines and you can pass pretty cleanly and stuff like that. I do enjoy the half-mile circuits a lot. I've struggled on the miles, I think, just mainly because my size and honestly my bike speed. Like I haven't been on the fastest bikes in my career. So that makes them, if you're not on a good bike, a strong bike at the miles, it makes your life really difficult, like really difficult. So I think overall I really enjoy riding on the half miles, and usually a slick car track, like one that you kind of have to search. Like you go out in the main event, you think one line's good, you go to it, it's not that good, and you have to look around. That's kind of my cup of tea. That's my style.
Really?
Yeah. I've kind of prospered in the tracks where the half mile tracks where you have to move a lot and you have to search and kind of be creative on the bike. So that's kind of my favorite type of race.
Is that track. Because you have a mindset of adaptability and other people are looking for something super specific, or just try to run the groove and do the best that they can? I mean, is that part of your mentality all the time? You're always looking for
different? I think that a lot of guys go out thinking they know exactly where they're going to ride. Like they start the main event saying, here's where I'm going. I go out and I think, where am I going to go? So like, it's not, there's nothing set in stone when I start on those types of racetracks. And, I'm going to try 2 or 3 lines within the first couple laps and maybe find something, or maybe have to abort mission and go back to what they're doing. But at the end of the day, I think that if I can do exactly what they're doing as well or better, then we're fine. And then you find something as far as a race line goes that's better, then you've kind of cracked the code, right? So
what advice do you have for people that are for like little kids, or somebody that has kids and they watch AFT on TV and they want to get started? What advice do you have for them? How can someone get started in flat track racing in general?
Getting started, it's the biggest thing is finding tracks near you, right? Like, so you have to find a series that makes sense and if it's logical for you to get to the races. But shoot, I think the first thing is just getting to a track, getting somewhere, because I think the one thing with flat track, and it rings true all the way to the professional side, is how tight knit the community is. Usually if you get to a racetrack and you're curious on how to like really get started, say you have a PW50 or whatever, and you go and you're like, well, I don't know what the next step is. Usually someone can draw you a map, or they have a bike you could borrow, or they have a track in their backyard that you can come ride for fun just to get used to it, to see if you like it. So I think the biggest thing is getting to a racetrack. So finding a racetrack near you that's putting on a local event and getting to it. And from there, I'll be honest, it kind of takes care of itself, depending on how in depth you want to get. So if you be your thing, I mean, from there, someone's going to tell you where the next race is, and you kind of, if it's within your area, and you go from there. So my biggest advice would be, first off, depending on what you want to do, like get to a track, find a track, look up, hey, I'm intrigued by flat track racing. Really big in the Midwest, really big on the East Coast, a lot of good racing series.
Yeah.
Get to a track at local levels as well. It's not super serious at all
Yeah.
levels, so, which is fun because you go and enjoy yourself. But then from there, I think it takes care of itself.
You said your parents moved to Illinois in the Midwest. Where did they move to, and what was your local track here in the Midwest?
So I was already professional when they moved, to be honest with you. They were at the bottom side of the state. They were about an hour from St. Louis, so they were
Gotcha.
way south, right? So, yeah, and they did it strictly because Bronson and I, my brother, were professional racing full time. We're never in California anymore. They got to a position where they were able to move and leave. Like my brother lives in Peoria, Illinois, so he met a live there, and yeah, so they were like, well, let's move to the Midwest. And yeah, so I never even stayed in the home that I did for a couple weeks or whatever, like a year, but yeah, I never lived with them in Illinois. Yeah, well, I was already Pennsylvania full time, but yeah, they just wanted to be a part of it and come to the races and do the deal.
Yeah, flat track in the Midwest is pretty massive. So for anybody that lives in the Midwest, there are so many racetracks. There are some big national racetracks where people can come see you. Obviously, DuQuoin, Springfield Mile, right? I mean, the list goes on and on. TTs, half miles, all of it here in the Midwest. And there's a lot of smaller flat tracks that some of the other series run where there's almost a race. There's almost a flat track. One of the local promoters up here. There's almost a flat track every single weekend starting in March. It runs all the way into October. So I think it should be pretty simple to get plugged into some of those of those circuits, right?
No, there is for sure. And my brother being in that area now as well, he's always filling me in on tracks and races that are going on at the local level in their area. And shoot, summertime anywhere in Illinois or Indiana or Ohio, like there's typically every couple weeks, maybe every week, like a Wednesday night fair race somewhere. So there's always something you can get and spin some laps.
Of all the bikes you've ridden, do you have a favorite? Do you have one that's like that was my dream bike?
Yeah, the FTR 750, the Indian was, man, that thing was pretty sweet. They did I mean, not being biased or anything like that, but that thing, they did a great job with that. They designed it at a really high level, and it basically did everything for flat track racing like perfect. So that was, and it wasn't like my dream bike because it came out while I was pro, but once I got on one after being on some of the other brands, I was like, oh, this is the real deal. So, and
it clearly fit what you needed and to feel and what, and the way that you rode, because you were virtually unstoppable on that thing. So
yeah, it was phenomenal for sure. It was a great motorcycle.
So you had a singles championship, 2 twins championships. Are there any other awards or any championships that you kind of cherish more than that? For instance, I got a big plaque of, a big wall of plaques and miscellaneous stuff. But for me, I won 2 sportsmanship awards, that were voted on by peers. So those are more important to me than the trophies for, whatever. Is there anything like that for you? Like, are there any awards or trophies that you've won that just mean more to you than another?
Not necessarily. No. Like, obviously the championships are cool. I enjoyed that. That was fun. But like at the end of the day, like I think the biggest thing for me is I have such a good tight knit group. It's not an award, right? But at the end of the day, I know that I got people I can call from the track that would, show up anywhere in the middle of the Midwest, would leave at midnight to come help me out. And I enjoy that. I enjoy having people that I can count on and trust and believe in and enjoy my time with. So no awards for it, but at the end of the day, like I think that for the most part, I'm looked up to by quite a few people in the paddock, and I appreciate it. I try and be a good example. And yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, the championships are cool, but as I get older, I don't want to say it means less because we still work really hard, but I know that the time is dwindling at the pro level. Like I only have so many years left, but like what impact am I going to leave off the track? And I think I'm trying to do a pretty good job of that. Obviously we all have our flaws and we make mistakes and stuff like that. But yeah, I think just trying to do my best to capitalize on, or own the mistakes I've made and just continue to be a good role model. So.
Yeah. Love that. So, I've kept you on long enough, but I can't let you leave without talking about the season opener at Daytona next week. I mean, we're literally talking, you know, I leave out of here in a few days. You're already in Florida.
Yeah.
You've had good success at Daytona, but last couple of years you had to take that second place spot to
Yeah.
Dallas. What does Daytona mean in the big scheme of things for AFT racing and flat track, and why is it such an important opener, and just how do you prepare for this, 2 nights of flat track racing at the world famous Daytona International Speedway?
Yeah, it's tough because I think hindsight throughout the whole year, it's not as crucial as we make it. But because it's Daytona, right? Like we're at the Speedway, it's bike week, people are vibing out. Like you got
There's all these expectations, like what's going to happen and who's going to do what, and
exactly. So I think as I get older, I start to kind of tame that a little bit. But
yeah, good.
winning it in Daytona, like it's Daytona Bike Week, right? Like it's fun. It's just everyone's been working all off season to make their bike maybe a little bit better. Maybe you switch teams, maybe you got new leathers, maybe you got different brand, whatever. But it's Daytona, so we let the hype always get to us, and it's okay because it's fun. It makes it entertaining, makes it good for the fans, and yeah, at the end of the day, shoot, think about the temperatures that you're in right now in Chicago, like. Everyone gets to come down to sunny Florida, and the vibes are high, and everyone's excited.
I'm so ready to get out of here.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure. So it's just enjoyable to come to Daytona and be a part of the event. And yeah, I mean, winning is incredible because, it's the world center of speed, right? But it's just how do you kind of manage those emotions of bike week and all the stuff and just getting through the weekend with a couple good results.
Yeah. If my data is correct, you were you're second in both races last year, right?
Yeah.
You were second the year before. What's it going to take get you on top of that podium 2026?
I think we're in a better spot this year. Last year, I almost didn't really know how to win, which is crazy, but like I just wasn't thinking I was supposed to. So that kind of put me in a different position. But yeah, I mean, I think that we're in a good spot. We won a lot of races last year. I'm staying on the same brand motorcycle I did that I rode the year. I haven't done that in a few years now. I've jumped around a lot. So, yeah, I think that we're in a good position. I think just getting through the weekend, and I think good starts and just being there the whole weekend. It's so different, Daytona short track. Honestly, like the fans maybe wouldn't understand it, but as racers, like some really weird stuff happens throughout the weekend, and the cream always rises to the top, and the good dudes, like Dallas has won there like 10 times or whatever, but there's a couple good guys, but sometimes you just get some guys that you wouldn't expect that are just phenomenal, and it's all good. It's just Daytona. It's what we always say as racers. We're like, it's Daytona. You just got to deal with it, but we'll see.
Talk about the team you have this year. Talk about the team, your sponsors, your crew, crew chief, who's helping you out, what are the keys to success this year for Briar Bauman?
Yeah, I've been with Rick Ware for the last 3 years, and now for the 4th year, I'll be with Rick Ware Racing, Jacob Construction, Parts Plus, and yeah, I switched mechanics. Brian Bigelow will be my mechanic this year. He's not new. He's been in the sport a long time, but he's going to be new for me, and he does a really good job. We've tested quite a bit and ridden some bikes quite a bit, and it's been fun. So, keeping things pretty similar, but a few changes for sure with the mechanics side. That's going to be interesting just because it is a big shakeup, but it's been fun so far. It's been nice. We talk every day. We have a good relationship, and yeah, other than that, the Rick Ware Racing team, I have a few new sponsors. Jerry Stinchfield Roof Systems is going to help me out quite a bit, and yeah, I mean, honestly, just do our thing on the XG 750.
Love it. Well, congrats, man. And you look forward to seeing you down there. I'll be over there on Wednesday and Thursday night when we finish up at inside the Speedway with Moto America and all that good stuff. So we'll come over and see you. And then one of the fun things that happens at Daytona is the BTR girls are down there as well. The build train race with Royal Enfield. Just real quick, how do you think that's influencing the sport? And what do you think that Freddie Spencer is a part of that as well? How do you think that that's helping the sport, or what's that doing for the sport and amateurs and women and all that?
my wife being a former racer, it's cool to see the enthusiasm out of the females that roll out on those things. And honestly, some of the tracks they ride are pretty aggressive, and Daytona's not always the smoothest. So I like to see them get through the weekend and have a good time and enjoy it. So yeah, I like what they're doing over there for sure.
It's big setup, big truck, big setup.
Yeah,
it seems like, everyone's got full access.
Very cool for sure.
All right. Fantastic. Well, that's going to wrap it up. Briar, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Stay on when I finish the stream, just stay on for a few minutes for it to finish recording and all that. But for everybody who's looking to connect with Briar, you can watch all the AFT races this year. Look for them online. They broadcast. Do you know what network you guys are on this year for all the AFT races?
Flow Racing will be the live stream, and then we'll be on, I believe, FS1 again for like the 5th year now. So yeah, tape delayed. Right. It is, but FS1 for sure, or Flow Racing for sure, and I believe FS1 for the tape delay.
Yeah, Fox Sports 1. Yeah, so, good deal. Well, yeah. So thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Everybody give it up for 2 times twin champion and 2015 singles champion. Again, you're headed to the Hall of Fame here at some point, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And so we'll see you at Daytona. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Absolute honor. We appreciate you. And man, thanks for spending some time on Exhaust Noise. We'll see you guys next time on Cyclevision Network. Make sure you just follow all our channels. And Briar, give everybody your social handles so everybody can follow you as well.
Yeah, simple. Briar Bauman, at Briar Bauman on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or X. Sorry. So yeah, at Briar Bauman.
There you go. With that, we will see everybody in Daytona, and make sure you follow the channel. We got 2 more AFT Flat Track stars coming up this week before we will launch for Daytona. We're not going to tell you who they are. Find our social media handles to get more information, and join us back here tomorrow and every week for Exhaust Noise. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Gear up and head out. Ride safe.